The One Piece is a forgotten theme park underwater, and Joy Boy is standing at the entrance in form of a bronze statue. Over 25 years, Oda has more or less sneakily implemented elements that will prepare us for this reveal. Just look at this, or this, and what about this? He made sure that you will have that "how did I never notice it's a theme park" moment when it's finally revealed. I bet you never noticed, or did you? But here comes the twist. The One Piece will go hand in hand with Luffy's dream. The dream to open a fantastic amusement park for everyone in the world to visit. Something like that may have already existed in the past with Joy Boy as its mascot, and I think I found quite a bit of proof to support this theory of mine. I also will reveal an insane twist about Dragon and Emu in this video, so you better watch to the end. If you're in search for fresh theories about your favorite manga, then get ready for a tainted take on One Piece. This video is part 2 of my theory about the location of the One Piece and what it actually is. It is not necessary to watch part 1 if you haven't seen it yet, but it might help with understanding some of the things I'm going to say later on. I spent quite a bit of time on the first video, and I'd love it if you could watch it and let me know what you think. But whether you watched it or not, the power of this world is undeniable in One Piece, and it will play a big role in this video as well. So if you got a bit of time, make sure to check out part 1 too. The link is in the description. And while you're at it, can you do me a huge favor by liking this video and subscribing to my channel? I really love this series, and believe it or not, I've been reading it since 2001. In my opinion, One Piece is one of the greatest works of fiction of all time, and by making these videos I hope to contribute even just a little to spreading the love. If you want to support this old man in doing something he loves, please like and share the video. It would mean so much to me. Thank you. In the first video of the two, I revealed the location of the One Piece, and in this one, I'm going to explain why I think the One Piece is a theme park. In chapter 1059, Boa Hancock tells Blackbeard that her power is useless without her beauty, and that if he killed her, all of Blackbeard's crewmates who had turned to stone would remain statues forever. This could of course have been a bluff, but I'm certain it's the truth because Oda has been putting an emphasis on statues in One Piece that shouldn't be overlooked. There are plenty of them. Take Usopp's statue of the Vago Mooland in Skypiea, for example. Or what about his great statue in Dressrosa? Not to forget the small statue of Noland that is there as well. Choo Choo the dog even has a statue standing in front of the new pet food store. Right at the beginning of the adventure, Luffy breaks Accent's Morgan's statue. In Little Garden, Mr. Tree is about to make literal statues out of Nami, Vivi and Zoro. We even see those beautiful snow statues in Drum Island. During the Amazon Lily arc, Luffy protects the statues of Margaret and her friends from being broken. Oh, it's another list again. Be quiet, I'm almost done. Oh, oui, sure. In Dressrosa, Luffy sees the bronze bust of Kyros and says, "A statue of a half-naked old man fighter. I want it." He also rides on Pika's huge monument on the back of Uzi. On Punk Hazard, we get to see many petrified people thanks to Smiley and Caesar's gas. On Whole Cake Island, Pero makes candy statues out of Chopper and Brook. In Marijoas, we can see huge statues at the side of the staircase that lead up to the Holy Land. And of course, after Skypiea, Luffy mentions twice that he wants a statue. But funnily enough, when Luffy sees the idol of Vaz in Angel Beach, he says, "Huh? You guys worship that thing? Must be nuts." I wonder what that thing is in the first place though. Oh, maybe it's a depiction of Emu? Yeah, maybe. Perhaps you folks can let me know in the comments if you have any theory about this. I would love to hear thoughts about it. Anyway, as I already mentioned, Oda places a huge emphasis on statues, and now that I made my little list, you might see what I'm saying too. It's also very interesting that Luffy is such a big fan of statues, even though we don't really see any reason why that would be the case. But once you notice that the whole story of One Piece is filled with elements related to theme parks, it all starts to make sense. After all, where else but in theme parks would you find so many statues? Theme parks have all kinds of mascots and characters representing different sections to attract little kids. Personally, I never liked mascots because I was a very shy kid and didn't really like the idea of those big costumes getting close to me. But in general, children seem to like them. Just look at parks like Disneyland. In Japan, people love mascots even more. You don't even have to be at a theme park. Regions and prefectures have their own mascots known as Yuru Kiara. The name comes from the word Yurui, which means relaxed or loose, and Kiara, which means character. You've probably seen some of them already, even if you're not a citizen of Japan. For example, Domokun is the official mascot of NHK, Japan's broadcasting organization. This guy is pretty well known even internationally. And there's another mascot you might know because he even is connected to One Piece in a way. Good old Kumamon is the bear that represents Eiichiro Oda's home prefecture and town, Kumamoto. Trust me, if you ever decide to visit Kumamoto, you can't miss him. He's everywhere. It's almost as if he's stalking you. We even brought home a little Kumamon magnet. But even better, when my wife and I visited Luffy's bronze statue in Kumamoto. Yes, you didn't see that coming, huh? Kumamon was right there with a film crew recording footage of some documentary or something, and he even waved to us. Aww, that's so cute! Yeah, anyway, as you can see, mascots are a big thing in Japan, and so are theme parks. On this seemingly small island nation, they have over 100 of them. This is because during the 1980s, Japan experienced a period of stable economic growth and franchises and companies like Disney invested heavily to bring the Japanese people lots of entertainment and fun. And so, naturally, Oda-san himself must have been exposed to this kind of entertainment. I believe this is where Luffy's dream comes from. In my opinion, Luffy, who grew up with no friends until he met Ace and Sabo, was always yearning for adventure. And he still is today. But when Luffy was following Ace every day, trying to catch up and find him and Sabo at their treasure, guess what he was passing by again and again? Rolling trees? No. Breaking bridges? No. Crocodiles, snakes, dogs, bears and tigers? No. That's not what I mean. Be quiet, please. I'm talking about Grey Terminal. Did you ever take a closer look at the panel when Luffy enters Grey Terminal? It's a place filled with garbage and unwanted things. Oh, and please notice this broken teddy here. This will be important. It's a place where people that no one cares about live with no laws. But that's not all. Oda made sure to hide something among the rubble, though once you pay attention, it's not really hidden that well. How is it that on this dump site, most of the things discarded here are rides and stuff you'd usually find at a fair or theme park? Look closer. Here, a roller coaster. There, gondolas from a Ferris wheel. And over here, those little teacup rides that spin around all the time. Basically, all the junk we see in this panel is theme park stuff. And what about this ginormous wheel or tire? Or whatever it is. It's attached to a chain. Well, I already have the answer for that, but I'll get to it later in the video. There's one more thing though. Among the homeless people we see a guy wearing an Namigasa, a straw hat, sitting right there. Alright, so if you were a kid and saw all that stuff, wouldn't you wonder and ask what it was? And if someone told you that it was once a huge park where people had fun all the time, wouldn't you think that's an amazing thing? Oui. Right? So this is one of the first but very important reasons why I believe the One Piece is a theme park. But no worries, I provide more evidence. As I mentioned earlier, I also think this is Luffy's dream. I believe Luffy wants to open a massive amusement park for the whole world to enjoy. And that's not an easy feat. This is why Jinbei laughed like crazy when he heard it and said, I sure picked a troublesome captain. He says this because, as a fishman, he knows very well how difficult such a task would be. Just think about how all the fishermen and merfolk dreamed about going to Sabaody Park. Kami says it in chapter 499. It has always been her dream since she was a child to visit Sabaody Park. Hachi gets nostalgic and says, I'm remembering my dreams from childhood. All merfolk and fish people children must dream of coming here. And that's not all. When Shaki mentioned where to find Rayleigh, she said he could also be at Sabaody Park, since he likes it there. The moment Luffy hears about the park, he's super excited and says, we'll look there! Even though Shaki had mentioned Rayleigh could be anywhere between groves 1 to 29. Luffy loves amusement parks. And there's one more thing that will blow your mind. At least if you watched my first video. If you're into One Piece theories, you've probably come across Gorowase, Japanese number world place. And guess what? The chapter titled Sabaody Park is number 499, which in Japanese can be read as Shikoku. Shikoku is an archipelago in Japan, the smallest of the 4 main islands, and it's home of the Naruto Prefecture. Yes, exactly, the same Naruto Prefecture I mentioned in part 1 of this video. And in case you haven't seen it, Naruto means swirl. And that's exactly where the One Piece is, under a huge swirl or whirlpool. I explained this way more in part 1 of the video, but as Shaki mentioned, Rayleigh likes it at Sabaody, not just because he's stationed here to help Roger's successor reach his goal, but also because of the amusement park. It reminds Rayleigh of Roger, because Roger's dream was the same as Luffy's. Remember, Luffy said when Shanks heard about his dream, he cried. That's because Luffy spoke the same words that Shanks' beloved captain, Roger, once did. And even better, Whitebeard, Ace, Sabo, everyone called their dream childish. Well, if opening a theme park isn't a childish dream, then I don't know what is. And I think this is the perfect moment to mention Luffy's birthday, because he was born on May 5th, which is Children's Day in Japan. Seems like it was important for Oda-san to give Luffy that birthday, huh? But I'm not done yet. I've got even more crazy stuff to reveal, so keep watching. This is the part where you like and subscribe, by the way. Have you ever spent the whole day at an amusement park riding roller coasters and spinning rides? Personally, I can't handle anything that spins. I'd feel sick for the next 3 hours if I did. How about you? Can you stomach those crazy spinning rides? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, if you ever spent a whole day at a park like that, did you notice that when you lay down in bed at night, it still feels like everything is spinning? That's because sometimes, even hours after rides, your body can experience motion sickness. You might feel like you're still going up and down when you close your eyes. And the same thing can happen if you've been on a boat all day. Now, this crazy spinning is also depicted in Luffy's eyes when he enters Gear 5. It's like an awakening of limited fun and excitement. But his eyes aren't the only things that spin. Now that you know about my amusement park theory, think about the name of the first ship that takes the crew on their wild adventure. The Going Merry. Have you never wondered why it's named like that? That's because of Merry who built the ship. Yes, Oda gave us a good reason for the name, but why include the word going, I'll give you a second to think about it. Got it yet? What do you always find at fairs and theme parks that spins around and takes you for a ride? Yes, a merry-go-round. You see? A fair is like the smaller traveling version of an amusement park, and the merry-go-round is a classic ride you will always find. Isn't it funny? Our beloved Going Merry is the starting point for the Straw Hats adventure, and it's literally named after this ride. But that is not the only ship that can be connected to festivals and theme parks. Just you wait. Now I think it's important to show you even more elements that support my idea, and there are plenty of them. After all, One Piece is not like any other story. It's crazy, colorful, and the characters look wild compared to other manga or comics. Every time we enter a new arc, we can expect Oda-san to surprise us. And let's not forget, he loves incorporating amusement park themes into the arc. It starts right off the bat with Buggy. I mean, do I even need to say more? This dude is a literal clown. Just look at him. And he's not just some random side character, no. Oda even mentioned in interviews that Buggy the Clown is his favorite villain in the series. This is evident in the live-action adaptation as well. Nothing that happens there is without Oda's approval, and in the live-action most of the action takes place inside a circus, and the location where it takes place is called Orange Town. Keep that in mind for a bit. But let's move on. One of my favorite arcs is Thriller Bark. The whole island, or ship, is basically a haunted attraction. Or is it a haunted house? Spooky house? What's the actual word for this? Well, you get what I mean. Thriller Bark is like those haunted houses at fairs and theme parks that you enter to get a little spooked by animatronics or actors. Pretty fun stuff, right? Monsters, ghosts, moving trees, creepy paintings, and even zombies. I think that's just an old guy with major injuries. Oh, you're right, sorry. But still, Thriller Bark is probably the biggest spooky house ever, but here's the catch. Brook says it's an island that came from the far-off West Blue. Now, remember, the Florian Triangle is on the other side of the red line. Right here. Isn't it a little strange that a ship as big as Thriller Bark managed to get through Reverse Mountain? That doesn't seem like a place Thriller Bark could squeeze through. And I know, some might argue that it's not as big. When compared to Hachinosu in this panel, you can see the difference, but honestly, I think Oda may have messed up the scale. Just look at how small the buildings on Thriller Bark look, even though they are closer to the fjord than the regular houses on Hachinosu. I hate to say it, but that's an L for you, Oda-san. Alright, next. Remember Arlong Park? The name itself has park in it, and that's because Arlong's crew built it to resemble Sabaody Park, the place they were never allowed to visit. In the manga, it's not as apparent, but in the live action you can even see water slides in some scenes. As I mentioned earlier, if Oda didn't want this stuff there, it simply wouldn't be. Then there's Longring Longland. Not only do the folks who arrive here suddenly feel all from looking at all the animals, but it's also where we learn about the Davy Bag fight. This fight is a crazy spectacle filled with food, games and all kinds of events. It's basically just like a fair. There's even some showboxing going on. And it's also the place where we learn about the power of the afro. Shout out to my man Dark Sake. Next, Totoland, the giant archipelago with Whole Cake Island. Do I even need to say more? Houses made of chocolate and candy, singing flowers, trees and teapots, magical mirrors and races of all kinds living in harmony. All of them looking like walking, talking mascots. Totoland is like Alice in Wonderland with Big Mom as the Queen of Hearts. It's a wild adventure park filled with miracles and wonders. And this is also where we get our first dream wedding. Well, at least until it got ruined. But yeah, major theme park vibes, right? Next up, Amazon Lily. Well, this surely seems like a dreamland for admirers of the female gender. Until you actually go there and they try to rip your dick off and kill you. But there is a character here who will be important later. The Verity is like one of those quirky themed restaurants you find at amusement parks. Just look at its design. It even has some fancy features like a fighting deck and little attack board. In Alabasta we encounter a wild casino theme at Rainbase, with plenty of gambling spots for adults. Gambling's not cool, don't do it. Reminiscent of places you'd find all around Japan like pachinko parlors. Reverse Mountain is literally the biggest water slide in the world, and the crew has tons of fun going up and down, despite some troubles along the way. What about Whiskey Peak? It's like a classic western park with cowboys and bars. Little Garden on the other hand is like a dinosaur theme park, just with the difference that the dinosaurs here actually live. But you know what? I think that's literally like Jurassic Park. These dinosaurs might be alive because the advanced science of the ancient kingdom made this possible. More on this later. Drum Island is a winter wonderland for skiing and sleigh riding. There are even nice gondolas that take you up the mountain. And it's also Christmas themed, as the silhouette of Chopper and the sleigh in front of the moon is supposed to remind us of those holidays. The Skypiea arc introduces us with a huge roller coaster going upwards. And what do the Straw Hats find when they reach the top? The biggest bouncy castle in the world. Look at how much fun they have jumping up and down, not to mention the mysterious Maya-themed jungle park with gold and secrets to uncover. Water 7 introduces us to Carnival. What, you don't know what I mean? Well, didn't you know, the masks people wear there are designed to resemble the masks from the Carnival in Venice, Italy. Venice is famous for those masks, and the whole city of Water 7 is designed to remind readers of Venice with its extensive waterways. The people in Water 7 wear these masks because they are on their way to San Faldo, as Robin mentions. And San Faldo is one of the island cities in Paradise connected to Water 7 via the sea train. It's also known as Carnival Town and the provider of iron. Oh, why is this island part important? I don't know, I just thought it was a fun side fact. But there is a One Piece recap supplement presented in a newspaper format released in Shonen Jump called Grand Times number 1192 or One Para 2. And it even features an advertisement for the San Faldo Carnival, claiming that the carnival and holiday festivities happen every day in the city. In Wano, we have these wonderful Japanese themed festivals with booths where they sell food like candy apples, cotton candy, not to mention the music and fireworks. Oh, and while I'm talking about festivals like that, pinwheels are something that can be found in these places too, just like balloons. And oh my god, do we have many balloons in One Piece. I could make a whole video about that. Instead, look at these pictures quickly and then know that Laboon's name was designed after the word balloon. And when you have seen my first video, then you know that in my opinion Laboon will be the one who will bring the Straw Hats down to the One Piece, which lies at the bottom of the Tarai Current. And what a nice metaphor that is. A balloon goes back to a theme park, his home. You know, these little automata went up to the moon with balloons, just like the Skyfall who descended down to the planet with balloons too. Enough of that. Remember when I mentioned ships? The Thousand Sunny is basically a traveling carnival with all its little gimmicks and a social dog system that Frankie built. There are pedal wheels, Mini Mary, Submarine, Waver, Motorbike and the Tank, and they all look like little theme park attractions. Also, that name Thousand Sunny, honestly, that could be a name for a crazy roller coaster. Same goes for the Arc Maxime. It's a literal UFO. I mean, it doesn't look like it, but it's a flying ship for crying out loud. That's pretty crazy. And there's at least one more ship that can be connected to fairs, and that is the Ark Noah itself. On German fairs, which are called Kirmes or Jahrmarkt or Rummel, well, we have many words for many things. Anyway, on these fairs or in theme parks, there is sometimes an attraction in form of a huge ship that swings up and down, higher and higher. There are different names for this ride. Some call it Schiffschaukel, which could be translated with ship swing, I guess. But another name for it is Fliegender Holländer, which in English is the Flying Dutchman. Oh! Yes, oh! Because as you, the viewer, of course, instantly noticed, we have a Flying Dutchman in One Piece as well. And that's the ship of Van der Decken. And in which arc does this ship appear? Exactly, in the Fishman Island arc. And that's the same arc in which we see the Noah. And now, finally, we have a purpose for these huge chains that are attached to the Ark Noah, beside them being for the Sea Kings to hold and transport it. In my opinion, these big chains are there to attach the Noah to its final destination in the big theme park that once was opened by Joy Boy. I bet right there, somewhere are huge pillars on which the Noah will be attached to make it the biggest Flying Dutchman in the world. Also, Fishman Island itself looks like a fun water park with all these tubes and slides. And of course we cannot forget Dressrosa. In this arc we were confronted with walking, talking toys. Hello? Not only that, but we also had little dwarfs living secretly in the forest, much like the Smurfs. It's like an amusement park fantasy coming to life, with whimsical and fantastical elements that fit perfectly into the theme park idea. With Egghead, we have a futuristic island featuring robots, kaiju, lightsabers, vending machines, crane games and those Futurama tubes that would be the main attraction at any amusement park. Overall, this arc also screams theme park when you look at it. Alright, enough of this. I'm sure I have named more than enough to convince you, and I only touched on the big obvious elements. I know there are plenty more, so if you guys can name some more in the comments, that would be awesome. But there's one more thing you should know. Until the sea virus broke out in 2020, there was a literal One Piece indoor theme park inside Tokyo Tower. It offered several games and attractions based on our beloved characters. Oda even referenced it in one of the color spreads. Look at Robin and Nami holding little advertisements for it, labeled Tokyo Pirate Festival, with Tokyo Tower beside it. Sadly, it closed permanently in 2020 due to the impact of the virus. I already mentioned the remnants of a theme park at Grey Terminal, the teddy bear and the guy with the straw hat, but the next part is important and heavy foreshadowing by Oda. Whenever Luffy followed Ace, he got into trouble, but when he finally found him and Sabo after passing through Grey Terminal, he also found their treasure at the same time. Do you understand? Look at this page again. Once Luffy found the remains of a long-gone theme park, he also found the treasure. I think this is a massive hint from Oda. Once we get to see another forgotten amusement park, that is when we have reached the One Piece. And what exactly are Ace and Sabo doing there? What are they saving money for? They are hiding this treasure until they have enough to buy a pirate ship. And what was Joy Boy again? That's right, he was the very first person to be called a pirate. And there's more to this, so hold on to that thought. I will get back to this later. Now, we also do know that right there at Grey Terminal was a literal pirate cove where Captain Blue Jam and his ship anchored. And again, a theme park and a pirate cove. The same can be found at Sabaody, where we have an amusement park and pirates. To be specific, quote-unquote new pirates, because in Grey Terminal we learn about a new generation of pirates who want to set sail, namely Ace, Sabo and Luffy. And then in Sabaody we have a new batch of pirates called First Generation, who are there to set sail into the new world. And Sabaody is also the place where the crew gets split up by Kuma, a broken human being. And what do we see in Grey Terminal? That's right, a broken teddy bear. I don't think I need to tell you, but Kuma means bear. And there's more. It seems like Dr. Vegapunk tries to warn the people of the D-Clan that there is quote-unquote a, or possibly quote-unquote another, but that's where the message cuts off temporarily. Many people think he was about to say that there's a traitor among them, a fake D member, so to say. And what did we see at Sabaody Archipelago when the Straw Hats reunited? That's right, we saw a fake Straw Hat crew led by the Morrow Black, a fat guy with a black beard. Are there any other fat guys with black beards around by any chance? Blackbeard? Yes, Marshall D. Teach.
人の夢は終わらねえ。そうだろう。
This guy is a fraud. Even Whitebeard said it. He is not the man Roger was waiting for. Once we get to Lovetail, and by the way, that already sounds like a name for a literal amusement park. Once we get there, Blackbeard will also arrive, the fake D member. In Grey Terminal, Ace and Luffy face Blue Jam, who says, "Humans are a strange kind of creature, don't you think? When we hit rock bottom, we can't help but stand there and laugh." I think this is exactly what happened to Roger. He stood there at Lovetail, learned the true history and reality about this world, and then he laughed. But Blue Jam also was after the brothers' treasure. Everything around them was burning, as he said the following to Ace and Luffy. "I've sworn that I'm going to live through this godforsaken mess. I'm going to take revenge on those stinking nobles, even if I have to steal treasure from a couple of stinking urchins to do it." You see? This is extreme foreshadowing. Someone will appear at Lovetail and try to take away the power that is hiding there. As Koala points out in chapter 1125, whoever claims the One Piece will not only be crowned Pirate King, but they'll likely wield a devastating power for themselves. A power to sink the world entirely into the ocean. Blue Jam says he will get his revenge on these nobles, even if he has to steal from some urchins. Get it? Who would fit the bill? The guy who will attempt to steal the One Piece will be Dragon. He wants vengeance against the Celestial Dragons, and he is willing to use all the tools he can get to reach his goal. Bello Betty also says it. We cannot let this happen. They won't let that power get into anyone else's hand, not even Luffy's. The revolutionaries are in on the fight, even if they have to steal from some urchins. Luffy, Blackbeard, Buggy? Dragon says it himself. This country is like a smaller scale version of this world's future. One day, I will change this world. You mark my words. Can you see it? Even Dragon is saying it. And he will not let anyone stand between him and his goal. Not even his own son. He won't let Luffy flood the world because apparently this is what will happen once the One Piece is found, according to Vegapunk. And this is why I think that ultimately Sabo will turn against Dragon. Because at the moment a pirate of Blue Jam's crew tries to stab Luffy, Ace saves him by using Conqueror's Haki. And now hear me out, I think the exact same thing will happen with Sabo. I know it sounds crazy, but I think Dragon will attempt to hurt his own son, and this is when Sabo will intervene and stop him. He will save his brother, just like Ace did once. And I also think that Garp will help Sabo to hold Dragon back so that Luffy can advance to the One Piece. I know, it sounds crazy, but it makes sense. Just look at this panel, how the Dan and Ace face Blue Jam so Luffy can escape. The parent and the brother, the Dan and Ace, Garp and Sabo. And before you say, how can you even assume that Dragon would hurt Luffy? Listen, almost every single father in One Piece is absolute trash. There are very few rare exceptions, but yes, almost all of them. Just look at what Yasopp did in 1126. And Dragon, in my opinion, is someone that won't turn back when he's close to his goal, no matter what. But enough of Dragon. It is also noteworthy that it is next to Grey Terminal, a forgotten theme park, where Luffy proclaims that he will become a pirate. And in Sabaody, right next to a theme park, Luffy shouts to Rayleigh that he will become the king of the pirates, and Rayleigh tears up and smiles. This panel is where chapter 601 ends, titled Romance Dawn for the New World. And do you know what the title of the chapter right after this last panel is called? To the Depths. That's right, the Straw Hats will have to go down into the depths to the ocean to find the One Piece so Luffy can become the king of the pirates. Now that you've seen all of this, it's time to explain what I think happened in the past. I believe Joy Boy, the first pirate, was the owner and mascot of a gigantic theme park, one that might have even been able to travel the world, like a circus or a fair. It could have been a sailing island, like Philibak, or even a floating one similar to Egghead. Imagine a big floating theme park full of unusual people, basically like a freak show. Long arms, long legs, giants, three-eyed people and so on. And this is basically the same as I mentioned before. we have a theme park-like place, such as Great Terminal or Sabaody Archipelago, and new pirates, just in this case, they are the very first ones who set sail to the seas. Now, this park perhaps didn't allow nobles to enter because it was meant for the common folk. This exclusion may have led the government to declare the park illegal, which eventually led to Joy Boy forming the very first pirate crew and ship. It's essentially an inversion. In the present story, fishermen at Sabaody aren't allowed to enter the amusement park, but in the past, it was the royals who were barred from entering. This park might have been divided into different sections that parallel the places we see in the story. Sections like Thriller Park, see what I did there, Longwing Longland, Totoland, Wano Land, remember Kuri stands for Wano, Fishman Island, Drum Island, and Dressrosa. Aren't these all fantastic names for different sections of a theme park? What about Little Garden? I mentioned earlier that Oda could have taken inspiration from Jurassic Park, and the reason these dinosaurs still exist today is because back then they had the technology to bring them back and turn the island into a park. What about Totoland? Sounds good too. Still not convinced? Remember Oars the Island Puller? What if Oars was the one who split the park into separate islands after Joy Boy lost? It would make sense that all of these islands used to be one at some point. That's why the log post is always pointing to the next ones with the same magnetic anomalies.
Go on.
But how exactly did he lose? Let's assume he was allied with the so-called Ancient Kingdom. From everything we've seen, he was incredibly powerful. I mean, if the Haki he once collected somehow survived in a knot carried by MF to this day, then he was a force to be reckoned with. And the Ancient Kingdom had all kinds of advanced technologies, so how? Well, I have a proposal. I mentioned statues and Boa Hancock's ability earlier in the video, and in part 1, I asked, what if back in Joy Boy's time, whoever had Boa's ability could turn people into bronze instead of stone? Remember how Luffy really wants a bronze statue for himself? What if Joy Boy was turned into a bronze statue and that's how he ultimately lost the fight, and that is the reason why his trial lies under Marie-Joyeuse?
But how was he able to write the apology letter to Poseidon in the form of the Poneglyph if he was turned into stone, huh?
Good point. My answer is twofold. First, Joy Boy didn't create this Poneglyph. The Kozuki clan did. He might have told one of them what to write on those sturdy cubes. Secondly, I believe he may have willingly allowed someone to turn him into a statue for reasons we don't yet understand. Perhaps he had a terminal illness like Roger, and this was the only way to freeze him in time, so he could potentially be turned back once they found a remedy for him. Or he might have been tricked by someone he trusted while he was weakened, which would explain why he couldn't undo the effect of the Mero Mero no Mi. Now, we have a few suspects who could fall into the latter option. Zunisha, for example, was punished to work for an eternity for committing a severe crime. Elephants have historically been connected to circuses, so maybe there's something there. And did you know that the word zo in Japanese can also mean statue? So was Zunisha responsible? I mean, on its back is a tree looking like a whale, and inside of it is a road poneglyph. This works very well with everything I mentioned so far, but there's also
Nefertari Di Liri.
It's widely believed she may have possessed Kuma's fruit, the Nikyo Nikyo no Mi. But what if she actually had the Mero Mero no Mi? Think about it. It makes sense. There might have been some sort of love triangle in the past. Why else would Imo have Lily's picture hanging in their garden? And now we have Boa, the woman who trusts no man, suddenly falling for Luffy. Boa, the snake princess, who possesses the Mero Mero no Mi. Boa, who can create literal statues in the story, something Luffy wants for himself. Think about it. As one of my viewers, Eric Whitney, pointed out in the comments of my last video, this could be why Oda had Zoro strike that cool pose when he was about to become a wax figure. Maybe Joy Boy didn't get the chance to do that. He got surprised, as I mentioned earlier, and ended up looking really silly when he was turned into a statue. Unlike Zoro, who would have at least have looked cool if the same fate had befallen him. But maybe all of these are just coincidences. But the emphasis that Oda puts on statues in the manga suggests we'll likely see one when we finally reach Laugh Tale, and I believe the statue will be of Joy Boy himself. We also do know that Teach has the power to absorb Devil-Fruit powers, so maybe he's hoping that there still is some Nika Nika left inside of the petrified Joy Boy for him to suck out. That is why Blackbeard wants Boa's Devil-Fruit power. He must know that there's someone who got petrified by it at Laugh Tale. Now let's get back to Joy Boy's theme park. I've come up with 3 possible names for it. Option 1. Joyland. It's straightforward, right? But think about it. Why would his name be Joy Boy if he wasn't the mascot of a theme park called Joyland? Option 2. Rainbow Park. A rainbow mostly forms the shape of a D, though in rare cases you can see a complete circle. Oda has also sprinkled rainbows throughout many color spreads and cover stories. But I think it's Option 3. Dreamland.
What about Laughtale?
Nah, that's too obvious and boring, and also I think that's just the name Roger gave the place. Now hear me out. First of all, the D in the names of all these characters could stand for Dream, and maybe their ancestors were employees of Dreamland. Don't believe me? Let's start with the one we know most about. Trafalgar D. Waterlaw. If you read his name like a Westerner would, it becomes Law Water D. Trafalgar, or rather, Law Water Dreamland Trafalgar. This could signify that his ancestors were in charge of Water Dreamland. That water part is what's called an Imina in Japanese, a forbidden name or title, much like how Voldemort is treated in Harry Potter. But they hid this name because they feared the world government. Knowing this suggests that other members of the D clan probably have a hidden Imina too. But we don't know if it's words like water. But maybe Luffy's hidden name is Joy, who knows? And then there's Jaguar D. Saul. His Japanese name is pronounced Sauro, which sounds like dinosaur, so maybe his ancestors were in charge of Little Garden. That would make sense since Little Garden is where we first encounter giants and Saul himself is a giant. Speaking of names, we have some characters with land literally in their names, like Mont Blanc Noland. Isn't it odd? Why would his name be No Land? You might think that's a pun from Oda because when Noland first discovered Jaya, it was full of gold, and when he came back, there was no land. But wouldn't it be funnier if their family name was Noland because they weren't in charge of any specific part of Joy Boy's park? Then there's Figaland. In Romaji it's Figarando, which sounds very similar to how you pronounce figure in Japanese. Figuya. Were they in charge of the park full of figures, like Madame Tussauds? If you're unfamiliar, that's a museum filled with wax figures of famous people.
Are you saying they are
D members? Yes. Maybe the Figaland and Noland family also are D members, who knows? Now, I just want to quickly provide a few more reasons why Laughtale has to be underwater. If you think back to the big swirly symbolism of the gates of Totoland and Fishman Island that I showed you in video 1, did you notice that there is a connection as well? There was a road poneglyph on Fishman Island, but somehow it ended up in the hands of the man with the burn scar. We know that it was underwater at Fishman Island at some point. Big Mom already had her road poneglyph when Roger was still searching because he tells us he took a rubbing from her. And conveniently, she stores hers behind a big golden gate with a swirly pattern, just like the one on Fishman Island. And where did we find the other two? Well, one is on Zou, inside a whale tree. I would say that counts as an underwater theme for sure. And the last one was in a submerged ruins of original Wano. As you can see, the underwater and swirly theme continues. But now to the last part. It's important that you keep in mind what I said about Emu in the last video and how all of this connects to dragons and whirlpools. One of you guys pointed something amazing out to me. Juicy Lee being kicking-ish. Yo, what's up with the name, bro? Anyway, this kind person threw a wild comment at me. And even though I think he got most of this from ChatGPT, no offense bro, please correct me if I'm wrong, there are some bits in there that are amazing and add perfectly to my theory. Just one thing though, if you use ChatGPT or any AI, don't trust everything it says. Always double check with other sources, because some parts you mention in your comments are a bit wrong.
Are you seriously lecturing someone who tried to help out?
No, I'm just saying you gotta be thorough and...
Unbelievable!
You're right, sorry. Anyway, as I said, his comment was still amazing. Thanks to that, I learned about Shuimu. Shuimu, according to old Chinese folklore, is a water demon in Chinese mythology. Now this name derives from the Mandarin words Shui, meaning water, and Mu for mother. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is mind-blowing. Shuimu is the old mother of waters. And what are devil fruits loved by? That's right, mother of nature, the sea itself, as Vegapunk says. This Shuimu is the mother of the sea, and how fitting that it has Mu in the name. Now, Oda's quote about mothers being the opposite of adventure makes even more sense. But we are not done with Shuimu yet, because I gotta talk about her looks. She's been described in some sources as a woman who can turn into a snake or dragon. Oh, and have a look at those wonderful swirls underneath her. And guess what? There's a tale about her sinking a city called Sisho beneath the waters. Because of that, the Monkey King, Sun Wukong, tried to capture her, but she kept slipping through his fingers. In the end, he managed to trick her with the help of the Goddess of Mercy, Guanjin, and chained her in a well. Maybe we'll see something like that in the future. Keep in mind that Luffy portrays the Monkey King, so that's totally possible. The part about Chushu might be a bit off, as it mostly refers to modern Chinese pop culture from 2023. But the rest was freaking fire. So yeah, thank you so much for that comment, man. This was amazing info.
And you complained, huh?
Yeah, I said I'm sorry, okay? But now, I hope you can see how everything comes together, the first video and this one. There will be a dragon standing between Luffy and the One Piece, whether it's Imu, his father, or both, and this dragon will be at the bottom of the giant swirl. Once Luffy finds the One Piece, he will discover a big submerged amusement park, and the voice of Joy Boy will pop up in his head, luring him closer, telling him everything that he told Roger as well. That's why Roger said he wished he had lived during Joy Boy's time, because Roger's dream was also to open a huge amusement park for everyone to enjoy. And maybe you've already noticed that at key points in the story, there's always a theme park. It starts with Great Terminal and ends with Arlong Park. The start of the Grand Line is marked by Reverse Mountain, which is basically a big water slide, and at the end of it, the crew reaches Sabaody, where there's an amusement park. Then of course, we start into the new world at Sabaody, and at the end of this, well my friends, I think we will find another theme park. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet, then you should totally check out part 1 of this theory. If you've already seen it though, then maybe watch this video where I explain why Franky's father is not Queen, but rather one of the zombie generals that appears at Thriller Bark. Again, please like the video, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any new uploads. And please share it! Share it!